back. Man, oh man, we're super excited because we're going to be talking all about the latest and greatest news that is happening in Hollywood.
Yeah, a lot of news. Okay, in case you guys hadn't heard, there's a battle going on out in the West. Somebody's trying to control the desert. Who's going to get it, Sony or Warner Brothers? One's got a pretty significant name behind them, so I don't know, but that's going to be interesting. We're also going to talk about the passing of James Earl Jones and what that meant for the industry, and we're going to share our thoughts on that. So that's going to be a tough one. But then we've got some really awesome news too, guys. I mean, we're talking about the latest news of Spider-Man 4, which is exciting. I know you've got some thoughts on, no doubt. What do you, new Harry Potter? Are we recasting? Where are we going? What's that for? Is it for movies? Is it for TV? We're going to talk about that and clue y'all in. We've got so much going on, and just in time for the election coming up right around the corner, everybody's favorite oh shit movie, Civil War, is now streaming. So we're going to tell you all about that. I can't wait, man. This is going to be a really fun show.
It really is, because we're getting into the nitty-gritty topics and all of the fun stuff that was happening in Hollywood. And man, oh man, do you like that show Hot Ones on YouTube? Well, they might be doing some live events over at Netflix. So
Yeah.
we're super excited to talk about that. Man, oh man. But that's later on the show. Now, let's get a little crazy. Hello, everyone. So you want to start a podcast but have no idea where to start? Well, Crazy Ant Media is here to help you. We want to assist you finding your VFE. What's VFE, you ask? Well, that is your voice, your format, and your equipment. These are the three biggest essentials you need to start your podcast. All those hours watching nonstop YouTube videos or all those random website links, those are done. Just hop on a Zoom call with us and we'll talk about everything you need to know to create your own podcast and find your voice. Plus, we will send you home with a 12-page packet over everything we just discussed. It's very in-depth. It is definitely a must-need while trying to start your first podcast. Contact us at info@crazyantmedia.com today so that you can start finding your podcast voice for tomorrow. What's up, guys? Oh my goodness, episode 272 of ITCAFpodcast. Oh my goodness, you guys know your host with the most, myself, JLo Fantastic, and the one and only Mal.
What's up?
Oh my goodness, so much happening in Hollywood, and we're super excited to go deep dive into it. But before going into it, be sure to leave a rating on this podcast, comment below, and tell us what you actually think about this podcast. Because if you didn't know, leaving a rating on every podcast platform that you listen to this show on actually helps it get seen by more people who enjoy entertainment news, but especially those who are trying to break into the entertainment industry.
Yes.
That's what we're here, man. That's why we're here. The Crazy Ant Media Company is all about lending the helping hand, so be sure to do that. And we are also in the pre-production stage of our film The Lesson Plan, so be sure to check that out. We have a nice little Indiegogo page, campaign page, available right here, right now. If you look it up in the descriptions, you should be able to see the Indiegogo link. Be sure to head over there, learn more about the film, and donate if you feel so inclined. We would really appreciate it, man.
Yes.
Because it's a great story. It's a comedy drama a little bit that deals with anxiety. Man, oh man. So we love starting conversations, and this is a great film to do so.
And we're hooking you up. If you go and check the perks, if you choose the $75 perk, you're getting it all. You are getting a shout out from us on social media. You will get a thank you on the IMDb official page. You will get a signed script from us. You will get a signed poster from us. You get a t-shirt. Like, what? I mean, you guys, it's all in on that one. So it's a really good package for $75. You can't beat that. So check it. We got other perks too. There's other really cool stuff too. Do you want to be in the movie? That's possible also. At least you virtually in the movie. Check that out, man. It's so much good stuff.
That's right. That's right. And of course, be sure to head over to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. We've got shirts, we've got hats, we got anything and everything you need for your merchandise needs over there. Please be sure to check that out. If I'm not mistaken, I believe we're still on the 20% discount for everything off in the store. So like I said, be sure to head over there. Well, starting off the industry news, this one is a sad one. So, I mean, we wanted to get out of the way. You know how we do it with death in the entertainment industry. We lost a big one, that's for sure. James Earl Jones. I mean, revered actor. Everybody knows that. Who voiced, obviously, the villain in Star Wars, Darth Vader. He starred in Field of Dreams and many other films, and he is an EGOT winner.
Indeed.
He died Monday at his home in Dutchess County, New York. He was 93. So he did get to live a very long life, and he made his imprint on the entertainment industry. That is for sure, because I mean, you think about Mufasa and the Lion King, you think about so many different things coming to America. So yeah, this guy, I mean, is a juggernaut in the entertainment industry, especially in the voice acting community. So it's one of those passings that I feel like was heard around the entertainment industry.
Well, and when you're 93, you span generations, right? You're talking about a guy who reached an entire generation of people with The Great White Hope, and then with Darth Vader, and then with The Lion King, and then with Coming to America, and then just continuing. Then he showed up on Big Bang Theory, and we're just touching on tiny little bits of stuff in film and television, but he was also a stage actor and a voice actor and just so many things. And so anybody whose career can last for such a period of time that you can get people that were older than me and then people younger than you, all in that range. The guy was just phenomenal. It's obviously a huge loss for the community, but as you guys know, he had retired. He had stepped away from everything. He signed over the rights to his voice so that Disney could continue to use his voice as Darth Vader and manipulate and do whatever they had to do. One of the first actors to agree to do that, to say, yes, I'm giving over the rights to my voice and you can use it after I pass. With that move, I always felt like he kind of knew maybe it was getting close, and he was just trying to get his stuff in order, and but yeah, man, I mean, it's rare. EGOT winners are rare, and this just shows you the talent that this man had, and it's a big loss for Hollywood. And I mean, the tributes just poured and poured and poured for days and days and days. It's a sad loss, but 93, that's a good life, and that's a really good life, and I think he would agree that he probably lived every second of it. So
it's true, man. It's true. And I mean, I think we should talk about our favorite roles that he was in. I mean, voice acting and live action. For voice acting, obviously for me, since I'm a big Star Wars guy, Darth Vader.
Sure.
But for live action, I loved him in The Sandlot. He was the old man that everybody misconstrued was the mean, rough old guy that had this terrifying dog in his backyard. But yeah, I love those two roles, and I feel like the humanity comes out in both of those roles. Like, obviously, after Darth Vader was trying to come back around in Return of the Jedi, and then, of course, when the kids actually went over to the front porch and knocked on his door and actually got to talk to him and get their baseball back. He brought a lot of humanity to his roles, and I've been seeing a lot of his work in Fences on Broadway. Recently on TikTok. So I mean, it's like I said, it's a true loss, but I mean, those are a couple of my favorite roles that he appeared in because, like I said, legend, been in this game for so many years.
Oh, without doubt. I think my favorite live action role with him, though, honestly, Fences obviously on stage. I mean, it's hard to beat Fences. It's just a phenomenal look at his talent. But The Great White Hope. I came to it obviously after its initial release because I wasn't quite born yet. But it is a brilliant look at how an actor approaches a character. If you want to know character study and how to develop a story and a backstory and bring something, watch that movie and watch what he does in that movie with that character. It's phenomenal. It's by far probably my favorite live action. And then voiceover, I mean, yeah, it's hard not to go with Darth Vader, right? Especially when you hear the story of him talking about how it all came to be. You know, they really thought it was going to be David Prowse. Lucas is like, this is a big, intimidating guy. That's going to be my boy. And then they heard him talk, and they're like, maybe not. And, and you hear James Earl Jones say, yeah, so then he came to this, shy, timid black guy from Mississippi who stutters and says, you're it, and because he was an actor's actor, right, a stage guy kind of a thing, he talks about how he tried to bring some humanity into Vader, and George is like, no. Just leave it monotone. It's perfect. That's how we want him. This guy is not human. He's gone past that. And so he's like, don't do that. But when you hear him talk about the whole process and how he was even a little intimidated by David, because he was like, oh crap, is this guy going to kick my ass for doing the voice? He thought he was going to be Vader kind of a thing. So I don't know. It's just so many little stories like that he just shared along the line that it made it hard to not just love the guy. So, whew, man, it
is rough. And I'm looking up his page on IMDb, and it looks like his first thing credited was in 1962.
Yeah.
So he must have started very, very young.
Oh yeah.
In Monitor, whatever that was. But yeah, I mean, from 62, I mean, he just retired a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a long career. But, I mean, kudos to him, man. He's put out some amazing work, and he will live on forever through his content. That's for sure.
Without doubt. So this next one, we're going to, liven it up a little bit, sort of. But we want to talk about this one, though, because as you guys know, if you listen to this show, and just in general, if you're a fan of the entertainment industry, be it film and television or music or whatever, more often than not, we're hearing about bad shit. Such and such did this. Such and such was arrested. Such and such molested somebody. Such and such a drug addict. So we want to talk about the good stuff. The good stuff. So if you guys haven't heard already, Jon Bon Jovi, he's on a bridge in Nashville, okay? He's filming a music video. Okay, that's okay. For whatever reason, they don't shut the street down. They don't, cordon it off like they would normally do for a production. They're letting people, I guess they wanted the natural feel of just people walking the bridge during this video. Maybe that was a whole concept of a look for the video, whatever. But for whatever reason, people were still on the bridge. And while they're filming this music video, they notice, John and a few of his people notice, there is a woman who has stepped over the side of the bridge and is going to jump. She's about to jump. And him and another one of his team slowly approach her and say, hey, what's going on? How are you okay? Is everything all right? What's going on? And they get her to turn. And the woman member of the team kind of gets close enough to her to start rubbing her shoulder and kind of turn her towards John. And John just very casually approaches and carefully and just talks to her, just sees her and says, what's going on? What's happening today that's making you want to do this? Let's talk about it. Let's think about it. And just went through the mode of literally talking this woman down, and then they're able to embrace her and pull her back over to the other side, get her to safety, and then he just kind of walks with her away from the bridge and continues to console her and talk to her and kind of a thing. Guys, that's amazing. First of all, to even go, let's stop everything and go see what's going on with this woman, right? Great. But then I don't think you guys understand that both John and that woman on his team put their own lives in danger. When you are reaching around to somebody that's on that other side of the bridge, if they struggle, if they decide to pull, if they decide to make the jump and you're on, you could go. And so you're sacrificing potentially your own life to save somebody else's life. It's a great thing. And we don't talk about stories like that enough. And to John's credit, he didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to do an interview with the press. He just was like, I don't want to talk about it. This happened. This is the thing. We're good. He gave his statement to the police. The police were the ones that went to the media and credited him as a hero and talked about what he did. He did not. He's just like, I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to help this woman. I'm going to see if I can whatever I could do for her, and then I'm gonna shoot my music video. Like, I just think it's a wonderful, beautiful thing, man. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, it's super awesome because we talk about all the time how, things happen in people's lives for a reason. And, he was meant to be there that day. They chose that set for whatever reason who they
Right.
did, that location. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing. So to be able to implement, his kindness and his generosity and save this woman's life, like, yeah, it's huge. Like, and I mean, especially this woman was wearing scrubs. So is she like a nurse? Is she's in the healthcare industry at some capacity. So
Right.
to have that type of person who is in charge, or not in charge, but is part of, our healthcare system, or, dental system, or whatever, somehow, some way, it just shows you that everybody's human. Everybody goes through a lot of things in their lives that they don't talk about. So yeah, I mean, that's why, mental health is such a big thing for us. And that's why we've, started our Everything's Okay initiative, our podcast. And, so it's beautiful to see. And especially with somebody of his stature, to take time away and be like, okay, no, I'm going over there. I'm a human being. She's a human being. Let's talk about this.
Right.
So yeah, I thought that was beautiful.
And for if anybody doesn't know, this month, September, is Suicide Prevention Month, National Suicide Prevention Month. So for it to happen during that, but we talk about this all the time, both on this one and heavily on our mental health podcast, that you never really know what somebody is going through. And sometimes the difference between life and death is just seeing them. Letting someone know that they are seen and not alone. And by him just walking up and asking, "Are you okay? What's going on?" She felt seen. Somebody cared about whether she was going to jump or not. And that's all it takes sometimes. So if you can do something good for somebody, do it. If you feel like somebody is just needing to hear you say, "I see you, I care about you, what's going on, you seem a little sad today," do it. Because you don't realize that one sentence or that one acknowledgement may save their life and be the difference in somebody's world. That woman, I don't know, we haven't done a lot of stuff that had but she may be a mom. She may have kids. She's definitely a daughter. She's somebody, and so she's still here, and that is a credit to him. And so just a really, really feel good story, and much respect to him for doing it. I feel like, that's humanity. Most people are inherently good. Most people would have gone over there and tried to help her. But with somebody with a platform, somebody with a name who can make that, then it's always good. It's always good.
Yeah,
so
most definitely. I completely agree. I mean, just keeping that positivity, keeping that outlook, and to keep moving forward. I mean, that's what we live by, and it's good to see other people do as well. So, I mean, it's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing. But another beautiful thing, and we're super excited about this because everybody knows we're big Jon Bernthal fans,
Yes!
and it's about time, right? It's about damn time. Because he has reached a new milestone in his career. He picked up his first Emmy win as a guest actor in a comedy series at the Emmys. So this is freaking phenomenal, which is crazy because every episode that he does is very dramatic. So, I mean, again, the comedy category for the Bear is just still makes no sense to us or really anyone out there in Hollywood.
no.
So that's absolutely hilarious. But yeah, man, I mean, this is freaking awesome. Yeah, outstanding guest actor in a comedy series. And I mean, this guy, he's been putting in the work for a very long time.
Oh.
And I mean, he was kind of typecast for a little bit, but then he kind of came out of that. He is very theatrically trained as well. I mean, if you guys don't know a lot about Jon Bernthal, like, he went to Russia and learned all about acting.
Yes.
That's where acting, like, really originated, was over there. And so to be able to implement those materials, and I just, it's a great win. I'm super excited for him. and hopefully more comes out of it, because he's that type of guy who deserves something consistent. I mean, he pops up everywhere, but he doesn't have anything consistent. So hopefully this will gain some momentum.
And I mean, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. He's a scene stealer. Everything he's in, if he's in the scene, he is dominating the scene. He is controlling the scene. He's that guy. And I know what you're thinking, like probably so many out there, his first? But yes, this is his first anything. He doesn't have an Oscar. He didn't have an Emmy. So for him to finally get it, I was literally jumping up and down. Not even figurative, literally jumping up and down when I saw that he won. I'm like, finally, this man is being recognized. It's like, this should have come a long time ago, in my opinion. Hopefully the Oscar is next, because he's certainly had some roles that he should have earned that as well. But yeah, I could not be more excited for this guy, and it's so overdue. And I want to stress too, because like you said, this show, first of all, The Bear that he won for, is not a comedy, guys. We don't know still why they are categorizing it as a comedy. It is a drama, a dramedy at best. Is there some comedic moments in it? Absolutely. But it is more of a heavy drama than it is anything comedy. And this scene, I wanted to get the episode right. That's what I was doing. So the scene that he won for, the episode that he won for, is episode 6 of season 3, called Napkins. And it's all about Tina. It's how Tina came to work at the restaurant. And there's this moment where she's just in there getting a sandwich. Okay, she's been not getting any job. She lost her job, and she's been trying to find jobs, and nobody will hire her. And she's just and she sees the thing, and she goes in and she gets a sandwich, and she's just sitting having the sandwich, and he comes in, and he's like, "Hey, well, I kind of see that you're kind of feeling off a little bit today." I oddly enough, after just talking about the Jon thing, but he approaches her. He's like, "I can tell you're kind of down today. What's going on?" And he starts talking to her, and throughout this conversation, they just start sharing life about what's going on in her, and he opens up about what's going on at the restaurant and his family and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of the conversation, he realizes she needs a job. It's like, "Come to work for me. Come do it. I'll hire you." And but guys, and I think we talked about this on several shows like a few weeks ago. This is a strictly dialogue, 10-minute straight scene of nothing but dialogue between these two. And it is mind-blowing. So the idea that he won for this, I was like, yes!
Well, that's interesting, because I thought they were judging season 2.
Well, then, no, it was this episode.
Yeah, that's weird, though, because, like, everything else is for season 2.
Which is so odd. But then, when you think about it, and even more so because season 2, he could have done it with the fishes. Christmas episode, with fishes.
I was like, they're judging season 2. I thought,
right, and so that's another one, guys. That's a 9.5 minute pure dialogue scene at the Christmas table where he just like. If you haven't, I highly suggest you watch this show just in full in general, because everybody on it's phenomenal and every episode is phenomenal. But these 2 particular episodes with these 2 particular scenes, if you want to see a master class in acting, this guy just delivers home in these 2 scenes, in these 2 episodes, and I'm thrilled that he finally got it. What I'm really excited about, though, is that this just proves, because we're writing a television series, for anybody who doesn't know, and we get told a lot, "Oh my gosh, there's too much dialogue," or "Oh, I don't know, you know, people aren't going to be able to follow along with that kind of stuff." So when I see a show that's got a 10-minute scene, nonstop dialogue, I'm like, fuck yes, you can have a story that's dialogue driven. You don't need shit going on. Just let people talk. So I'm thrilled. And Jamie Lee Curtis, who won, she won for a 10-minute scene between her and the daughter in the hospital for the birth of the baby. Non-stop dialogue. I was like, yes. So I'm thrilled, though. I just, you know me, we got to move on, because I would talk about Bernthal forever. This guy I could not. And check out his podcast. Fucking awesome. This guy, like, when he had Deborah Ann Wall opening up about how she was a people pleaser, but it was really because she was terrified to be living life and basically just feeling like she was messing everything up and she's terrified of it's just he gets people to talk and God, I wish he would come on this show. Bernie, come on, Bernthal, come on this show, man. Fuck. All right.
Yeah, it is a great podcast because I mean it's not just with actors and celebrities.
No.
He talks about how he doesn't want to do that. He's had like people from motorcycle gangs
Oh,
and
yeah.
like all walks of life. So it is very entertaining. My favorite so far has been the one with him and Shia LaBeouf. So it's been a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, and it's real. They don't hold back. It's a real conversation about real shit. And I think that's what he brings to all of his characters, which is, again, why I was shocked this man is just now winning something, because it should have happened a long time ago. But
Agreed.
All right, are we jumping in? We're going over to Spider-Man. And this one's kind of exciting, y'all, because okay, are you like us? You've heard us talk about before. We were huge fans of Shang-Chi, right? We loved it. We thought it was like an incredible movie. It was really really fun, but had a lot of it captured the MCU, what the MCU does best when it's rocking and rolling, and that's drama, comedy, action, love, everything all swirled up into one and kicking ass. Well, the guy behind that, Destin Daniel Cretton, who's the director of that film, is now apparently really close to signing a deal to direct Spider-Man 4, which is freaking awesome because I think he would bring that to this franchise, which this franchise has been really good, so you don't want to mess it up. You want a guy who knows how to continue that. And of course, you guys know he was attached to the Kang Dynasty, but that all kind of fell apart. But he didn't leave Marvel, though. He was the co-created and is the showrunner behind Wonder Man, which is going to lead into the Vision Wars and Scarlet Witch and all kinds of fun stuff there. And they're developing Shang-Chi 2. So all that's going on. So it's not like he's a stranger to Marvel, but this is really exciting news. I mean, what do you think? Because I loved Shang-Chi, and I think anytime you can get that type of just engulfing everything, it's gonna. Oh my God, Tom Holland's gonna kill it with that guy.
Well, I mean, if you think about other Spider-Man movies and the Shang-Chi movie, like there's a lot of parallels. How it was shot, the color tone, just the overall vibe. It's very along the lines of Spider-Man, so it would definitely make sense. I mean, you have a main protagonist who has a best friend or a female love interest who he wants to be his love interest, and like, yeah. So I mean, this just makes sense. I'm super excited. I hope he gets the job. Because, like I said, I think that he definitely knows that type of range. And I think, honestly, what Marvel should do is just have, not to say they never outsource, because, you want to bring fresh eyes into it as much as possible. But you should have, like, a group of directors who could tell the story properly.
Yeah.
Like the Russo brothers, obviously. But, I mean... Yeah, that's just my opinion. Because sometimes when you bring in the outside directors, like nothing against the lady the woman who did the Eternals, obviously coming straight off of her Oscar win, and then that next film came out, but it didn't resonate as much as the other Marvel films. Now that's not to say that she wasn't doing the best she could with that specific content, because obviously, what was the Eternals for? Because we don't know how that's going to move forward at all, and they don't have any plans out there how that's going to move forward.
No, I was just going to say, other than it set up the adamantium, but you can't tell me they made that whole movie just to set up the adamantium. I mean, like,
because I mean, that's something that could have been mentioned here or there. You
exactly.
Didn't need, that with it being one of the most boring Marvel films, it's unfortunate, but like I said, I feel like if you have the specific people who you can keep interchanging, I think that would benefit in a long-term situation, especially if you're trying to continue to tell these stories. So yeah, that's just my thoughts. I definitely feel like, he would do great in the position because, like I said, he knows the types of characters. I mean, it's basically not the same person with the same powers, but it's the same vibe because Shang-Chi and Spider-Man, they're the same as far as personality traits.
Right.
I just feel like it would be very beneficial for them moving forward for him.
Well, and I think you touch on it really well with the example of the Eternals. It's because she didn't have a love or passion for the characters. She was just a filmmaker who approached the story and told the story about superhero beings. But there was no... So I feel like the difference between the people who are really successful in Marvel, and in DC for that matter, are the ones who actually have a passion and love for the characters, who understand the characters, who have read the comic books, who know, and Daniel clearly does. I remember him talking about, which is why he co-created Wonder Man. He knows who Wonder Man is, right? And when he was talking about his love for Shang-Chi and I just think that's what sets it apart. If you have to understand these characters in order to tell a successful story with these characters. And I think what I'm most excited about, because there's long swirling rumors here for Spider-Man 4, remember it left off that MJ doesn't know who he is, but there's going to be a reintroduction of that relationship, a re-getting to know each other for the first time. And what you saw him do in Shang-Chi with her and Awkwafina and how they developed that, I think the idea that this guy is going to be working that relationship back into, okay, it's not the first time for Peter, but it is the first time for her because she doesn't remember. And how they rework that relationship and make that, I think he's the perfect guy to do that because he gets it. And I think it's going to be humorous, but he's also going to bring a lot of feeling to it, right? Because it'll be funny, but Peter still very much loves her and knows who she is, and so it's complicated. So you need a guy that can bring that humor and make it lighthearted, but then also bring the emotion.
Because where we left off with that character, he's lonely. He's
exactly.
got his own apartment, and he's starting from stage one.
Yep.
Like he's starting from day one. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they approach that whole situation, especially with teasing the symbiote and the back and forth with Venom, if that will happen. But yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how he'll approach it. That's for sure. I definitely think he's the right guy for the role of director, I guess you could say. So that'll be fun. We'll definitely keep you posted on that.
For sure.
All exciting things, man. All exciting things. Well, we're going to be jumping over to HBO and Warner Brothers Discovery. And just in time, guys, just in time. Alec Gardlin's A24 Civil War, which dominated headlines in the spring, is now streaming on Max. Just in time for this upcoming presidential election. If you guys haven't seen this thing, holy shit. Very polarizing. It's honestly one of my favorite films of 2024, if not the favorite film.
Yeah.
To be honest, but I just feel like, this film shows you the possibilities of what life could potentially be like in a disastrous situation if we continue down the road we're on. We talk a little bit about this a lot about this in our political anxiety segments on Everything's Okay. But ooh boy, it's definitely an extreme take on it, but it's all also possible. That's the scary thing. Like, it's very extreme what you see in this film, but it's also very possible.
Yeah, because we say that it's extreme, but we've heard and seen things that were actually in this movie in reality. How many times have we heard that Texas wants to secede from the country and form their own, and take on, and how many times have you rolled up onto in the middle of the sticks and there's these guys with guns and saying, some of the stuff in that movie was very real and is happening. And if you guys haven't seen it, no spoilers, but it's basically what's happened is there has been a secession from several of the states, and they are now trying to take on the rest of the country, and they are on a mission to infiltrate the White House and assassinate the president. And so we follow these war journalists who are trying to get there to tell the story. And it is so intense, and it really just takes a stark look at the division in the country, where you're either this way or that way, and there's no in between. And if you run across somebody who disagrees with you, you're probably going to die. And it's scary, but it really opens your eyes because, like you said, I feel like if we do not get a leader here soon that can actually unify the country, put an end to this 50-50 division where there's no compromise, no talk, this movie could very well be our reality in a few short years if we don't see that progress made and find somebody who can do that. So I would say if you're researching, if you're doing your due diligence to find out who you want to vote for and who you don't this election period, use this movie as part of your research, because this is where we're headed. This is legitimately where we're headed. So educate yourselves about what reality could look like if you decide to sit home on the couch this year. That's all I'm saying. Don't do it. If you're over 18, register to vote if you haven't already. Get out there and do your duty and vote. And we're not going to tell you how to vote. Just educate yourselves. Inform yourselves. Look at both platforms, both parties. Decide. But I would definitely say watch this movie before you go, because it will certainly open some eyes.
That's for sure, man. That's for sure. Well, other things that are happening over at Warner Brothers Discovery and HBO, HBO is going to be casting for a Harry Potter series. Now, they are casting for the original trio, which are Harry, Ron, and Hermione, and they are committed to be inclusive and diverse about their casting decisions. Now, looking up more information about this particular project, it's going to be basically, again, straight back to the books. It's not going to be new concepts. I think it's going to be more in depth of what they didn't touch on in the books, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. But I'm worried, though, because last week we talked a lot about cash grabs. I'm worried this is going to be another cash grab, and it's not going to turn out the way we want it to turn out. Like, for example, everybody loves the original Game of Thrones, but you have a select group of original Game of Thrones fans who hate House of the Dragon. So I'm feeling a very parallel scheme that is going to happen with this series and the books and the movies. Because, I mean, there's already a group of people that are like, yeah, the movies are okay, but they forgot this from the books. So hopefully, my hope is that they are able to go back into this thing and touch on more little bitty details and characters that were supposed to have bigger roles in the films, because they didn't have enough time. Obviously, all of the 8 films were 2.5 hours long. So you can't tell everything from those books, because if you've seen those books, they're thick boys.
Yeah.
So hopefully with the series, it would, have a more in-depth look at everything throughout each particular book. But I'm like I said, I'm worried with the state of the entertainment industry as it is right now. It feels like almost crap. But I would also love to see them get more into detail about what this series of books was and how they will continue moving forward, because I mean, the potential for this thing is literally a lot. 8 seasons, 10 seasons, like, depending on how long they want to tell each story. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm hopeful, but I'm also terrified at the same time.
I feel you, and I'm just gonna tell you right now. I feel like I think my biggest concern with this is J.K. There's always controversy surrounding her. She is very opinionated. She is very set in what she thinks and doesn't think, and it's not always great. And so when I see a statement like they are committed to inclusive, diverse casting,
right?
She might. I just sense there's going to be controversy coming where she has a problem if they go a route with something with the casting that she's just not okay with. And I just see this could potentially be an issue. She tends to get fired up when things she doesn't like or goes against what she thinks. So, yeah, that is my concern. It's like, I love that they want to go that route, but is she going to be okay? Is she going to be like, oh, I'm fine, and then come out and say something stupid? So, we're going to see. You're going to see. And as a creator, I kind of get it when people start messing with your something that you created, right? But on the same side of that, you know, once it's out of your hands, once it's out there, then it's interpretive. And you did sign away the rights to Warner Brothers. I mean, the film itself. So you got to ride with it now, So I'm hoping that it's all good. I'm hoping she's cool. I'm hoping it's, because, I mean, let's face it. I mean, Radcliffe could not keep playing him, okay? He's like 80 now. You got to start going backwards if you're going to keep telling the story. You got to have the young kid, right? But,
yeah, they're looking for ages 9 through 11.
See, so, yeah. So just really going back, So, we're going to see. I'm right there with you, though. If done correctly and fans get behind it, it could have a long run. Yeah, I think you're right about that. I really do. This next one, I just want to preface it by saying I, too, have passed on the role of Hal Jordan.
Yeah.
I mean, gun came to me. I was like, no, bro, I wanted to play Lex. I don't want to do Hal. I'm sorry. Anyway, if you guys heard, of course I'm joking. James doesn't even know who I am, but come on, man. Josh Brolin did. We talked about this on last week's show. He was indeed made the offer that was confirmed. He passed. He is not going to do it. And it was his to lose, so he said he doesn't want to do it. Another one of the names that we brought up has also passed. Apparently, Matthew McConaughey was approached after Josh said no, and Matthew turned it down. So that means we've got Timothy Olyphant and Chris Pine.
Yeah. And Ewan McGregor.
Which I think Ewan's probably going to pass on it too. He's kind of fighting to play Obi-Wan again. I don't think he wants to lock himself down in it. So it's going to come down, I think, between Timothy Olyphant and Chris Pine. And I love Timothy. I think he's amazing. I was a huge Justified fan. I love when Justified came back. I'm all in on him as an actor. But if you're asking me as a comic book geek and as somebody, I think Pine is perfect. He looks like Hal Jordan. He's played Kirk, so he can play a pilot, right? Like a fearless pilot. Because Green Lantern, they have no fear. That's how the ring works. If there's any fear, the ring doesn't work. They can't wield it. They've got to be a man without fear. If you don't mean to take Daredevil's little slogan there, but it's basically they're fearless. And so if there's somebody that I believe that could pull that off, my money's on Pine. I would like to see Pine get this role. I hope he accepts it because...
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but I definitely think I'm leaning more towards Chris Pine as well. Because, I mean, he just has more experience with the sci-fi, superhero type genre.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought up Star Trek, but I mean, we also have Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Yep.
And I'm sure there's other ones in there, but I mean, I just feel like he's more open to different things like that. Again, me too. I love Timothy Olyphant, but I think he's a little typecast, and it doesn't have as wide of range as far as genres go as Chris Pine does, and that's not to take anything away from him as an actor. I just, I think Chris Pine would be better for this role.
Yeah, he screams Hal Jordan. I buy Chris Pine as a cocky fighter pilot who comes across this alien and gets the ring. I buy that. And somebody who's grizzled and tough and can teach Jon Stewart, the young new mentor or mentee, right? But also, I don't know. Just everything about this, he screams Hal Jordan to me. So I'm kind of hoping he just takes the gig. Yeah. Just do it, Chris. Just do it. Oh,
exactly. But I mean, everything in the entertainment industry is a competition. That is for sure.
Without
because it's either the streaming wars, or you're fighting for land, or you're bidding for content. At film studio or at film festivals. So there's always a lot happening in Hollywood. Everybody's always at each other's throats. That's for sure. Well, currently, Sony and Warner Brothers gear up for a political fight for the Las Vegas studio. And it's going to be crazy, guys, because they're seeking state funding, basically. That's what we're talking about. They're seeking state funding so one of them can build a lot. And honestly, right now, I would probably give it to Sony because, I mean, I would look at Warner Brothers' fucking stock price and I'd be like, you're just kind of burning money, aren't you? So I don't know, man. It's going to be very interesting because Nevada leaders want to diversify a little bit of the Las Vegas economy. I mean, you see them bringing in football teams. They want to be more than just gambling. So they think that this would definitely help. I mean, you'd get a lot more actors from LA, that would be a lot easier. I mean, they could just boop right there. But yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like Sony is the bigger bet.
Sony, it's funny because Sony is more stable at this point and probably has more money, but they're making the lesser of the deal. Warner Brothers is doing the bigger proposal. They want the bigger studio with more guaranteed production, which is just odd to me because, we don't even know if Zaslav still wants to make movies, for Christ's sake. He keeps shelving them all the time. But he made a commitment to do a lot of production and says day one, they will have a movie shooting there. So, he's making a lot of bold statements. But I'm glad you brought up the sports thing, though, because that's the issue. So they want tax breaks. Basically, they want to get a tax break for building there. And because they gave the Raiders, the owner of the Raiders, so much of a tax break to build that stadium and lure them away, they don't have the money to give these huge tax breaks. So they can't facilitate both. So it's coming down to one of them will get it and one of them will not. But that's why. And here's the thing, though, because right around them, Arizona and New Mexico, they have huge film things going on. The studios are being built in both of those locations, and they offer huge tax incentive to filmmakers. Like, New Mexico's is like 180 or 200 million, and Arizona's like in the $150 million range for like rebates that you get back if you film there and stuff. Nevada was $10 million. It was capped at $10 million. And I'm like, 10 million compared to 200 million, I'm going to New Mexico, right? So part of this deal, though, would be to expand it to the $100 million or more range with film rebate incentives on top of it. But with the reason I teased at the top of the show, there's a key ally for Sony. Mark Wahlberg, as you guys know, left LA. He lives in Vegas now, and his company, Municipal, and him, they are trying to bring production there. That's his goal. He wants to build that into something outside of LA to where and he is backing Sony. He is behind Sony. Jeremy Renner also could potentially. He's trying to convince one of them to build more north where he lives and bring production more north in the state than right around the Vegas area. So there's names out there fighting for it or whatever. And I just want to break it down what they're offering. So as far as what Warner Brothers says, they say they want to build 12 to 14 sound stages on 34 acres, and they're looking for an annual tax credit of $100 million or more. They want to build it in Southwest Las Vegas. The University of Las Vegas, Nevada is apparently backing them hardcore. They are a key ally. And they have Senator Roberta Lang on their side. She would be the one trying to push to get it passed. Sony wants to do 10 sound stages with 31 acres, $80 million a year annually in tax credit, with a production spend of, I forgot the production spend. Warner Brothers says they will spend bare minimum $500 million a year on productions being filmed there. Sony says they'll spend up to $270 million a year on productions being filmed there. They want to shoot in a location called Summerlin, which I guess is just outside of Las Vegas. And as I said, they have Mark Wahlberg pushing for them. And their sponsor is Assemblywoman Sandra Joragui. So they both have politicians. They both have some key factors, but I'm with you, man. I'm really with you. How does Warner Brothers promise $500 million in production from day one? We're going to fill the studios. 12 to 14 sound stages on 34 acres. The stock isn't like, what is it right now? $10? It's $8.49.
I was about to say it's probably lower than that.
$8.49. How are you guaranteeing? And again, I want to stress you've got a guy that is shelving movies, pissing off creators. It doesn't even want to make movies. So I don't understand. Is this a ploy to try to have this in motion so he can use it as a selling point when he tries to spin off Warner Brothers, right? He's made no secret that he's talking at least about selling off Warner Brothers or breaking it up. Is this a ploy? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I know. I definitely think Sony is the better bet because, I mean, they talk about in this article they would want to be a bigger part of the larger commercial development, including retail and hotels.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like everything that fucking Zaslav says is full of shit, in my opinion. So I can't trust him. And I mean, I don't know if the government there can trust him. So that's the biggest thing. And I mean, yeah, like I said, I just feel like Sony is the better bet. It's one of those things where they make very successful blockbusters every single time? No, they don't. But I feel like they're also more consistent than what current day Warner Brothers Discovery is. So that's just my opinion, man. I don't know. I really don't. I guess it's gonna come down to money. And it's funny how they say 12 to 14 freaking sound stages compared to
10.
Sony's 10.
Yeah.
Compared to Sony wants 31 and Warner Brothers wants 34 acres.
Yeah.
And it's like those other 2 to 4 sound stages will probably be tiny. So it's like compared that 3 acres really isn't going to get you a lot of freaking room. So yeah, that's just ridiculous. I don't know. Well, Nevada has to be careful.
I mean, look, we make no secret about how we feel about Zaslav and what he's doing to the legacy of that company. I just think he's a disaster. He's Chapek 2.0 all fucking over again. It's a disaster. And here's the thing. I know what you said about how is Sony consistent with blockbusters? Do they always make great stuff? No, they're not real. But you know who they've got? Mark Wahlberg and Municipal, and he is bankable. And if he signs a deal with them, like a first look deal with them in conjunction with this studio being built there, that potentially could be huge. That could be the difference. It'll be like, hey man, I'll guarantee making movies for you if you can get this studio here. And I'll sign that deal with you. Because as you know now, he's pretty friendly with Netflix and shooting in New Mexico and stuff. But I'm assuming if he's putting his name to this thing, he'd be willing to sign a first look deal with Sony if they can make it happen. So you got to keep that in mind. I think that's a better ploy. I'm right there with you. I think Sony is the better choice. And if I'm a Nevada resident, I'm thinking go Sony.
Yeah.
That's our thoughts on it. But as you said, Sony doesn't always make wise decisions. This one seems to be an issue. Apparently, Sony is scrapping their Into the Spider-Verse plans and starting all over with new ones due to creative differences with the filmmakers. Now, as you guys know, they walked away. They're done. Lord and the guys, they're gone. Like, they are the Spider-Verse. Like, I'm not sure the Spider-Verse will be as groundbreaking and awesome and forward-thinking as it is without them. So I don't know who you bring in to replace them and then say, start over with new plans for the Spider-Verse. I mean, it was no secret if you guys look real close, even the Spider-Man movies in the MCU with Marvel and Sony live action started playing off of stuff that was in Spider-Verse because it was so popular. They started like going off those routes and without those guys there, I just don't know if that vision works. It's not to say there's not plenty of other creative filmmakers out there. Not to say there's not another, filmmaker out there that might be a huge Spider-Man geek. I don't know. I just think that this thing, if you've ever seen these movies, they're groundbreaking. What they did and how they told stories and what they did with those characters was like nothing we've ever seen before. And I just don't know if this vision works without them. So I question Sony's choices in this. I think I would have tried to work out those creative differences with the boys before just saying, go, we'll figure it out. We've seen how well figuring it out in the Spider-Man verse works for them. They haven't without that. I mean, so I don't know, man.
Yeah, it is very interesting because you're talking about 2 Oscar nominations, 1 win for, best animated movie, and the third one is supposed to be the last one. So I mean, if you don't want the third one to be garbage, we saw what happened to Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. So it's one of those things where you don't want to replay history, but you might inevitably be doing so because if the creators did in fact, completely dark parted ways, it's going to be one of those things where you're just like, okay, something is going to lack. Is it going to be the story? Is it going to be the technology with the animation? Because you saw from the first one to the second one, there were other expanding, properties when it comes to the technology and the animation to
Yeah,
where they were still playing with new things to where now even other films are copying that, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that just came out this past
exactly.
year. So it's going to be one of those things where something's going to fail, something is going to be lacking, and I surely hope that it's not the story because these first two films were absolutely amazing. People loved them. They're loved by the masses. You
Yes.
don't have to be like an MCU fan to love these because they're their own individual thing. But I hope they figure it out. It sucks that they again pushed it back because that came out last year in 2023. So that's
Yeah.
5 years between the second one and the third one. That sucks.
Yeah.
Because I mean we waited I think 2 years between the first and the second one. But now waiting 5 years, that's rough, man. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how that goes. That's for sure.
Yeah, I think this is all the way around a bad idea. I think they should have just figured it out with the guys, let them finish this trilogy. I think what they're talking about with new ideas. We know they're doing Spider-Man Noir, so they clearly plan on spinning off some characters from the Spider-Verse into their own stuff. But can they do it without the genius of the creator? I don't. And the groundbreaking animation. I mean, if you watch these films, there's like 4, 5, 6 different types of animation molded all together into one kind of a like. Can they continue that type of creativity and just outside of the box thinking without these guys? I don't know. I don't know. Like,
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. But we are jumping over to Netflix and they are diving deeper into their live entertainment sector of their technology company,
yes.
their streamer. They are now looking at being in talks with the YouTube talk show Hot Ones to do live segments. Now, if you do this, I feel like you have to change it up a little bit. Have it be in front of a live audience. Maybe even have the audience ask a question, and if the audience member asks a question, maybe they should eat a hot wing as well. Something along those
Yeah.
lines. But
Yeah.
I feel like this is very smart because we've seen this show start from nothing and then become the juggernaut that it is. So that's always very cool. I mean, they did have a game show there for a little bit, but I think that got canceled because, I mean, ideas don't always work out the best way they possibly could. But I think this is a good idea, and it looks like it's going to be for multiple episodes, multiple interviews. It's not going to just be a one-off thing. And I mean, we love Sean Evans. Also, just like Bernthal, please come on the show. I think you would be awesome to
Oh
have a
my gosh.
conversation
Yeah.
with because he's a great interviewer. So I think Netflix is leaning more and more into this live space,
Yeah. They
and I'm not mad at it. To be honest, I'm not mad at it at all.
No, they've made it pretty clear that they want to penetrate that market and with live telecasts, and you can't do it all sports, right? So I mean, I love the idea of this. Who doesn't want to see somebody break down live when they can't handle it, right? Like that'll be entertaining to watch live because there's no edit there. If they start losing their shit and crying and like, oh my god, they have to, it'll be hilarious to watch live, and so. I love this idea. I love the concept of people like to watch train wrecks. So they'll be tuning in to see if these people just break down while they're eating, live. And so I love this. I think this is really smart. I hope that this happens. Cause yeah, I think this is just a fun way to kind of continue this show and make it different, right? Cause it just, yeah, I'm all in on
Yeah,
this.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Because I mean, Netflix, we already know about the football games. They obviously did the SAG Awards last year. They've been doing comedy specials, so they're picking and choosing different realms to dive into, and I think they're doing it very smartly. And I think that what keeps them ahead of the pack in the
Mm-hmm.
streaming wars, to be honest. Which is, it's always very interesting because you guys know we are Disney people, so we're always rooting for them to be on top. But Netflix always has that creative advantage, in my opinion, because everybody else just kind of tries to emulate what Netflix does. But how do you get above
Yeah.
Netflix? How do you raise the bar to where Netflix is like, oh shit, we should have thought of that.
Yep.
So it's always very interesting. But I love to see it, man. I love to see good, healthy competition, kind of like what we were talking about with Sony and Warner Brothers. So it's all very freaking cool. But something else that is very freaking cool is emails, because we've been doing emails a lot
Yes.
on our Everything's Okay podcast, but we even got some emails for this specific podcast. So we're going to read them to you and talk about them a little bit. The first one is about Zasloff and Warner Brothers. They're asking, what's going on? Hey, Dustin and Logan, I love your podcast and appreciate how you break down the complex industry news in such a very digestible way. Your recent discussion about David Zasloff's leadership at Warner Brothers really struck a chord with me. I agree with your concerns and about the company's direction, especially with all the reconstructing. It seems like Warner Brothers is losing its identity a little bit. What do you think about the long-term impact that will be the types of films that they greenlight? Will it all just be franchises and IP focus or content forward? Keep up the great work. Sarah from Chicago. Sarah,
Hmm.
thank you so much for sending that in. Obviously, they're, in my opinion, they're only focused on big budget films so they can try to do quick money. They obviously have really good stuff in the television space, HBO and on HBO Max and things like that. But as far as the film slate, yeah, I just think they're looking for cash grabs, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, it's so funny that that email couldn't have been more timely with what we were just talking about with the disaster that Zasloff is. Yeah, when you say, how do we feel? What are our concerns about the company's future? My concern is that there won't be a company, that he's going to tear apart
Exactly.
Warner Brothers and just rip it apart. And I'm not sure what he wants to greenlight. Sometimes he'll greenlight stuff and then can it. And so I don't think that this man has any business running a film studio, or he wants discovery. I don't know why I think he literally made this thing happen so that he could get access to Max, a bigger streaming platform than Discovery, and merge that so he could do what he wanted to do. And he doesn't really give a shit about the history of the studio or movie making or anything like that. That's just, in my opinion, he just doesn't. And I mean, if you hear people in Hollywood talk, they seem to agree. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
people that I know in Hollywood, other executives of other studios or creators or, content actors, they don't like him. So my concern for the future, it's not going to be around, that he's going to tear this thing up and ruin the legacy of Warner Brothers. So I hope not. But yeah, great question. And because and I'm sure we'll have much more to say about it on future shows, so stick with that. And then another one, also kind of timely, fell right into it of what we've been talking about, which I love. This one says, hey, Dustin and Logan, I have to say I completely agree with your continued critique on Hollywood's obsession with reboots and remakes. It's like there's no originality anymore. Yours rants about how studios are just banking on nostalgia instead of creating fresh stories really hits home with me. Why do you think that Hollywood is so stuck on this pattern? That is from Jessica from Ontario. Hey, shout out to Canada. For what Logan just said, money grabs. Intellectual property that they own are cheaper to make, and therefore the better chance on a return on investment. I think these reboots and remakes and rebrandings, or whatever you want to call them, over and over and over again, is because they're terrified to lose money. They're all so in debt right now, with these streamers to keep these things afloat. The between COVID and then the strikes, the theaters and the movies took a hit. And so they're all struggling. And so they're trying to figure out a way, how can we make money and not take risk? And that's by producing stuff that they already own. And so sadly, you saw it a little before the strikes and COVID, right? They were still but now even way more so. And while I get that from a business standpoint, from a creator standpoint, I don't like it. Because there's a lot of original content out there by a lot of really talented people that's not seeing the light of day because of this. And that disturbs me a little bit. And I hope that that's a trend that we can buck. You are seeing every now and then, like Civil War, like we talked about earlier, or like a Bike Riders, or, every now and then we'll get sprinkled with an original content, right, that does pretty well. But for the most part, we're not seeing it. And I hope we can change that. I really do.
Yeah, it seems like original content is only for Oscar-nominated films.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else as far as blockbusters and movie-going, and I just feel like it's been so diluted to the point to where it's sad. Coming from the business standpoint, to piggyback off of what you just said, I mean, they're trying to reshoot stuff that has already been out there, but also has already been successful. So I mean it is a big money grab, just trying to recoup that stuff. But I mean, you're seeing positions like a producer like completely diminish, because if you think about it, all of these actors who already have their own film and television production company, they're coming with a full package ready to go, and they already have their people working on it. I mean, to the point where like studio producers aren't really out there anymore. So it's one of those things where you either have to be a legacy or like claw and nail to try to get your foot in the door, which is super crazy, because I mean, the industry it is 2024 compared to 2000. It is completely different. 2024 compared to 1970, completely different.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say it's better. I mean, the quality, is roughly the same. The technology is better, but I wouldn't say the quality is better. You still have hidden gems. You still have great content that comes out every single year. But it's one of those things where, with so many different obstacles that the studios have had to face over the last couple of years, they're just trying to make sure they stay afloat, because if not, you're going to be hemorrhaging money and your stock is going to be sitting at $8. Well, so it's one of those things, you're just trying to stay above ground.
Well, and you just nailed it. Because there's a lot of these actors and directors and stuff who now have their own production companies. And the studios need to be really careful, because big hits are coming out of these independent production companies. A24 is slaying it. Margot Robbie with what is hers, Lucky Chap, huge hits coming out of it. Brad Pitt's Plan B, he might not be in all of them, but he's backing them, he's producing them.
He just produced Beetlejuice.
He just produced Beetlejuice, right? So, and Taylor Swift proved that you don't need the studio. You can go directly to a theater chain with a distribution deal. So if the studios aren't careful and they keep passing on this original content, these independent production companies like Lucky Chap and Plan B and A24 are going to make these movies with their packaged stars and go straight to the theaters for distribution and skip the studios altogether. And then you're really in trouble, right? You're already struggling. But if these big name people and their production companies start putting together packages with their big name friends and skipping the studio, that could be huge trouble with an industry where the stock prices are hovering in the low 20s and single digits already. So my advice to the studios would be very careful. Take more looks at the original content. Say yes more often, because you could be in trouble if you don't. I'm just putting that out. A24, if you look at the Oscar race over the last 5-6 years, A24 has consistently got nominees. They're consistently battling for the statue. Not studios, A24. So just I'm just saying they got to be careful. They got to be careful, because that's where the market is headed if people don't pay attention. So
yeah.
I'm worried about the studio system. I really am. We were just talking about Zaslav, but the legacy of these studios, who now the remaining studios left, are all part of the original Big Five. They're 100 years of history, and they're this close to being gone. They're in danger of being gone because of moves like this. So just, whew, I don't know, man. Yeah. I don't know. You don't want to see the end of an era from these studios, and unless you're fortunate enough to be like a Disney who has theme parks and you know, ships and different things to keep you afloat outside of the film and television. If you're strictly film and television, you're fucked. So I mean, you I don't know. It's woo. I don't know. Yeah, but thank you for the email.
It's crazy, man. It is absolutely crazy. Now it is time for our top 5 segment. Yes. And this week it is top 5 music documentaries. It's always very interesting to hear about these different musicians and their lives and everything they went through. So it's always very fun. My number 5 goes to The Two Killings of Sam Cooke. This one's on Netflix. And what they mean by that is he was a big civil rights activist. You know, what he did with his music, what he was able to do with his presence, his platform is something that only seldom people do, especially in a time like that. So to hear like his process, and they had some tapes, I believe, in this documentary too, of him talking about it, to just talk about equality. Just, you know, a white man and a black man should be able to drink from the same water fountain. We should be able to ride side by side together on a bus. Yes. You know, it's things that is absolutely crazy during the civil rights movement. But I mean, it's a beautiful documentary because before this, I didn't know really anything about Sam Cooke. So to be able to dive deeper into his music and feel his presence, I feel like is very special. And now I have, you know, a couple of his vinyl records and from
there you go
when they originally came out, and it's a beautiful thing to be able to hear the passion in his voice. But yeah, I mean, number 5 for me is The Two Killings of Sam Cooke.
Well, there you go. My number 5 probably gonna surprise a lot of people, but I really fucking loved it. My number 5 is, and I will not confirm nor deny that I'm a Swiftie. Just gonna say, but my number 5 is indeed Folklore: The Long Pond Studio Sessions, and this was on Disney. And so a lot of my list, they follow along the same format. And so this was recorded the entire time that she was at Long Pond making this album. So you see her recording the songs, you see the in-between days, you hear her talk about the process, you see some of the writing that is involved with it and where the inspiration for the song came from. And it's very interesting to just see them in their natural habitat and how they work. And that's what really like made me just identify with this type of a documentary. You get the music, and you love the music, but you get the reason behind the music. And of course, Folklore, this one, you guys know that, you know, the old Joe, and nobody knew that he was helping co-write all these songs or was like doing these, you know, and he was under the fake name. And but this is all that album and this kind and I don't know. And this one's kind of shot in like a sepia type tone throughout the whole thing. So yeah, I just dove into it. Everybody kept saying Americana, and I was like, you know what? I don't feel Americana. I know that's the one everybody says to watch about Taylor Swift, but I found this one and I loved it. So if you want to go back and just see her kind of chilling and the thought process and the writing and the different versions of the songs that you don't see or that you haven't heard that are in this documentary. I really loved it. I loved seeing her process of how she works. I don't think she gets enough credit as to how smart this woman actually is and what goes into. I mean, she's a self-made billionaire for a reason. I mean, I think a lot of people forget she started from a lower middle class family that didn't have a lot of money, and now she is a billionaire. that takes a smart person to be able to do that, and she's extremely creative. So check this one out, guys. My number 5, Folklore, the Long Pond Studio Sessions.
There you go, man. There you go. My number 4 goes to Jagged. Now, it's a play off of her not debut album, her second album, Jagged Little Pill. Alanis Morissette. This one is available on Max. I got to learn a lot more about her because, I mean, I just listened to the music. I listened to the hits. It was very fun because you got to experience what it was like for her to go through all of that huge fame in such a condensed period of time, which was very interesting. And she talks about her thought process going into songs and being on tour with just a whole bunch of guys because everybody in her band is guys, and then she was the only girl. And her drummer was actually the drummer who just passed away from Foo Fighters. So I thought that was kind of a cool experience, and to think about how the stars of bands, they always stay in that band basically, but the musicians, they interchange, they go to different places all the time to where they're trying to figure out their lives. But I thought this was a very interesting documentary because you got to get to know her a little bit more, because as someone who, they kind of write her off as this is her best album and her only good album, because even after we watched this, we took a trip, I think, to Indiana, and we went to a Target or whatever, and she had just released a new album, and her new album was already in the clearance rack.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of crazy that, she had such big momentum in the 90s off of this album, and her legacy is the 90s. It's interesting to think about artists who can't really evolve with the times, and it seems like her legacy is stuck there. Which is good and unfortunate, and all of these different mixed emotions all wrapped into one with a nice little bow on top. But I mean, I know she's happy with her career, and her success that she's had. But at the same time, wouldn't you want to have had more success in different elements of your career? So yeah, it was just a very interesting deep dive into who she was, writing that album and going through, a very mainstream, publicized divorce, or not divorce, relationship. But yeah, it was a very interesting documentary. So be sure to check that out on Max. Jagged, about Alanis Morissette.
Yeah, that's the danger, right, of your first album coming right out of the gate and being massively successful. You're always trying to chase that album. And unfortunately for her, like you said, she wasn't able to. And to no fault of hers, it's not like she wasn't talented anymore. It's not like she wasn't still singing her ass off. It's just she could never recapture that lightning in the bottle. And I hate when that happens. That's
her second album. Because if you remember, she was a poppy person at first.
Right.
Completely went rock.
Right. Yeah, when she went that grunge rock thing. Yeah. And see, that's the thing. How many people even remember the first album? Right?
Exactly.
So yeah, it's difficult, and God bless her, but she's out there. She's still doing her thing.
She is.
My number 4, The Boss. The Boss. Can you go wrong with The Boss? You can't. It's Letter to You. And again, like my number 5 with Folklore, this is a documentary about the making of that album, Letter to You. I really loved this one, though, because this one is all shot in black and white, and this one dives deep into his life. Because if you've ever listened to this album is all about his younger life and things that he's gone through, and how he's kind of shifted over the years in his music, so to hear his, just basically life, and how his life becomes these songs, and then how he works the arrangements of the songs, how it starts off one way but becomes something totally different, and their recording process is just, it's phenomenal to watch, because like what you said with musicians, and this is one of those rare occasions where the E Street Band is always there. That's the E Street Band is the E Street Band. And hearing the stories from Max Weinberg and like when Bruce decided to take a break and Max is like, okay, I guess I'm going to go play drums for Conan because I got to do something. Yeah, kind of. But the second the boss says, E Street's back, Max is back, right? He says, Conan, sayonara, I got to go. That process and that they're a family. They talk about the loss of Clarence Clemens and what that meant and how much Clarence's relative coming in and taking his spot meant to that, to keeping the family intact. Because anybody who's a fan of Bruce Springsteen, what is Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band without Clarence Clemens? Like, it's just. But to be fair, they don't miss a beat with it was a fill in and the blood is there and it's just amazing. But and you see the love story between him and Patty, and you see just. I don't know. It's for me. It came across as a family driven documentary about his life that happens to be peppered with some music. I felt like I was in their family because they're really just talking about his life and talking about their life and talking about how they've gone through all these events together in life and these and then you just have, and I loved the album. This one's a much more slower album. He's still Bruce Springsteen. He's still got, but it's a much more touching. He's telling a story in this album. And so when you watch this documentary and you see how that story comes together, why the order of the songs mattered to where he was going to put them and what he was going to say, all of that's just in there. And it's so fascinating to watch. I am not musical in any way whatsoever. So to see the process of how that brain works, it's just phenomenal. So yeah, I highly recommend this one. It's fantastic. Letter to You by Bruce Springsteen. It's unreal.
Nice. Yeah, I think that one's on Apple TV.
It is. Yeah.
Next one, number 3 for me goes to Devil at the Crossroads. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of Netflix and their documentaries. I think they're the best to do the documentaries, in my opinion. But this is obviously the story of Robert Johnson and meeting the devil at the crossroads, I believe, in Mississippi.
That's where it's at.
It's crazy because it's like an urban legend. This was, a guitarist who is trying to make his name in the industry, just trying to get out there playing at like little bars and stuff. And then one day he just vanished, disappeared. No one knows where he went. So it's believed that he met the devil at the crossroads and exchanged his soul for the gift of being a musician.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just so very interesting. You can still find very, very old clips. I think even Apple Music has like a little arrangement of Robert Johnson stuff to where you can hear him sing and play guitar. And, you hear musicians nowadays talk about this man and they're like, nobody's ever been able to play guitar like him before, which is crazy because he was not very old. I mean, everybody thought, that he sounds like a very old man. But he was like in his early 20s or something like that. It says he died at 27, so he's the leader of the 27 club.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things where, if you believe in religion and they say that the devil gets involved in the music industry and this, I feel like this is the stem, or this is the root of that huge tree that definitely branches out into like the Illuminati and like all this different stuff. So it was just very interesting. So yeah, my number 3, Devil at the Crossroads, about Robert Johnson. Catch that on Netflix.
Hell yes. And yeah, the amount of people, amount of musicians that reference this man as the guy that influenced them. Right, yeah. I mean, you're talking about some of the greatest blues and jazz and rock and like all of these people that are famous in all these different genres of guitar. Like, this is the guy. And so you're like, how many people did the devil influence? It's like, where's that music coming from? But yeah, no, that's awesome. I got to catch that one. I added it to my list because you put it on there. I haven't seen that one, so now I'm going to dive into that one. That's awesome. My number 3, guys, there comes a time when we realize that we're the ones who make a brighter day, and it's time to start giving. Yep, that's it. That's where I'm going. This one is also on Netflix, and it's The Greatest Night in Pop, and it is a documentary about the making of We Are the World and how it all came together. And I was a kid then, right? A teenager, and this song, I don't think enough people of current generations understand how massive this song was. It was huge. It was played everywhere all the time. But when it was initially released, it was simulcast on every radio station, everywhere, all across the country, all across the world at one time to raise the money. Everybody was listening. Like, literally everybody was listening. You couldn't find a single person that wasn't tuned into this song when it was simulcast. And it was to feed the world. It's Feed the World organization, right? And it's We Are the World to feed. But the idea of bringing together basically every single named musician that you can think of from every different genre and bring them together to do this song was like unheard of. So this idea of Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson going, got an idea, and then bringing in Lionel Richie and saying, let's make this happen. I mean, just, it's mind-blowing. You got Kenny Rogers and Cyndi Lauper and Daryl Hall and John Oates and fucking Joe Cocker and Stevie Wonder and Diana Ross and like just the people in this thing, Billy Joel, it's unreal what they were able to accomplish. And so this documentary goes into what you might think would happen, definitely happened. It wasn't at all kumbaya, let's get together and be happy, sing this song. There was some tension. Everybody didn't necessarily get along. There were some issues with how some people were singing. There were some people with how other people were not singing. So the idea of actually getting it together, though, working through it all, and then putting together the masterpiece that came out of it is something really interesting to watch. There's great interviews throughout this thing. Of course, all the behind the scenes, seeing them recording, seeing them singing, seeing what was working, what wasn't, how they decided to pair the people. If you guys are familiar with the song, you know there's certain pairs of people that sing together, you know, throughout their little arcs, and how that all, like, oh no, we can't have such and such sing with such and such, or we need this voice to pair with this voice, and just the process was, you really see the musical genius of Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson and Lionel Richie about the thought process on what would work or wouldn't work, or why this melody with this tone works this way or that way. It's amazing. It's really interesting to watch. And as you guys know, your generation, for sure knows, they tried to recreate the magic. It failed horribly. It was a disaster. It just didn't even come close. And they had really talented people of this generation try, but this is something that will never be recaptured. And it's a once in a lifetime kind of a thing. And it's so, listen to the song if you've never heard it, and if not, what? And then watch the documentary and see how it all came together, because it's brilliant. It's really fun to watch the process of how these superstar mega group of people came together and pulled this thing off, man. It's unreal.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, Bob Dylan being like, what the fuck am I doing?
There were several of them. Yeah. And the people who had to sing next to Cyndi Lauper when she's like, wow, 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 wow. And then that stays in the song, though. It's one of the best parts of the song. But the people going, what the fuck is she singing right now? It's so just, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. You got, highly recommend. It's entertaining to watch, but it's also, and I'm sorry, but once you watch it, you will find yourself for days afterwards singing the fucking song. You can't help it. It's like, we are the world. You can't help it. It's just, it sticks. It sticks.
It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. My number 2 goes to Tina on HBO Max. Oh my goodness. I really didn't know anything about Tina Turner. I don't even think I knew what she looked like before this documentary.
What?
I had no idea.
And now you know how to shake your tail feather.
Literally. But I mean, this was very interesting to like learn all about the stuff with Ike and like see like her success and this our late 60s, early 70s, and then the break, and then come back in the 80s as her own individual person, the queen of rock and roll. Like it was very awesome to see the comeback story. And I mean, it was very inspiring because it's one of those things where, you know, you don't realize when you're going through the successful times and then until you're not, and then realizing that you can get back to that success as well. So she was a fierce person to be reckoned with, that's for sure. So yeah, it was very inspiring. It was very interesting to hear about how, you know, she left Ike and just completely, you know, I don't care. Like, I don't care about any of it anymore. You know, it's just abuse is not in my forte. So it was, yeah, I love learning more about her because, you know, she was an icon, really. So yeah, that's my number 2, Tina.
She is the epitome of survivor. She is a survivor. And that man was brutal to her. And one of my favorite things about her is like, you did all this shit to me and I don't give a fuck. I don't want anything from you. I don't want money. I don't want the masters to the song. I don't want shit. I want the name because I earned the fucking name Tina Turner. Now, and that was epic. She's like, fuck you. The one thing I'm going to take from you is your fucking name because it's the thing that means the most to you. And I'm going to keep it. And I loved that, man. Have you watched What's Love Got to Do with It? The movie?
No.
Oh, my... Dude. If you liked the documentary, watch that movie. Lawrence Fishburne and fucking Angela Bassett.
Yeah.
That movie is hard to watch sometimes, like, but it is unbelievable. I think you would thoroughly enjoy it. Obviously, it shows that whole rise, like you said about the documentary. So, I put that on the
There's a
watch
nice
list.
little section in the documentary too that's about the film. So it's definitely on the list.
Oh, good, because it's a phenomenal film. I still catch it every now and then and go back and watch it because it's just so. You said the right word, inspiring. Her story is inspiring. It's like you can overcome pretty much anything if you're willing to break free and do it. It's just, it's unreal. My number 2 is also in HBO Max, and I learned a lot. And I was a huge fan of this anyway, these guys anyway, and I thought I knew everything, but I clearly did not. I was watching this documentary, and I'm like, they did? They what? Like, I had no idea. I'm talking about the Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart? It's got to be one of the single greatest documentaries I have ever watched. They start from the very beginning, and they talk about how they were basically like a pop band trying to compete, in that era with the Beatles, and they were huge over there. And they were trying to compete on that type of a level with that type of a sound. And they had some success. And How Can You Mend a Broken Heart was one of the big songs. But then all of a sudden the Beatles were riding them. And that sound found other areas. And so they had to completely switch it up. And this is where Barry just is like, I can hit this voice, I can do this thing, and let me try this. And they go into great detail about where that voice comes from, and then the harmony of the brothers and how they work together to make that sound. And then, as you guys know, the rest is history. I mean, they redefined an era with disco. The Bee Gees were disco, and how they were able to redefine that era and redefine that tone, that sound, that vibe, unreal. And then to have it all collapse, where people were just like, they were the greatest thing on the face of the planet, and then everyone fucking hated them, and it was like overnight. It's like, they are it. Everybody wants to be the Bee Gees. They're gods. They're like, woo, we fucking hate you. We don't want to listen to you. We're burning your albums. And it's like, what? And they couldn't sell shit. They couldn't get jobs. They couldn't sell out anywhere. And so they go into the whole process about how they had to become songwriters for other people to survive. And then they go into all these songs, these huge hits that I guarantee you probably had no fucking idea that the Bee Gees wrote. Islands in the Stream. That's the one I got. Islands in the Stream, Kenny and Dolly. I had no fucking clue the Bee Gees wrote that song. I'm like, what? It's a really interesting, and okay, so the music, obviously, but the big thing for me is, this is kind of like what I said about the Bruce Springsteen one. But these guys are family, and it goes into great detail about the relationship between those three guys and their younger brother, Andy Gibb, who was not a Bee Gee and had his own success solo, but then got into huge trouble, depression and drugs, and he was in trouble. And when the Bee Gees started to make a resurgence, they were like, "Come on, man, come be a part of the Bee Gees. Come join the group. We'll be four." And unfortunately, he had a little bit with them, but then ended up taking his own life, and it wasn't a very sustained thing with the four of them together. And then of course, both Maurice and they died. The brothers died. Barry's the only surviving one. And he goes into great detail about that loss of his brothers and the survivor's guilt, if you will, that he's the only one left, and trying to process all of how it all went down. And there was a little time when these three closest individuals, like at that time and on the face of the planet, like had problems. There were rifts, and they didn't agree on everything. And so the whole history of this group of brothers was just really amazing to watch. And again, this is one of those things where after you watch this, you're just like, you put on the Bee Gees playlist and just nonstop. I mean, who doesn't love the Bee Gees? I mean, come on, man. The Bee Gees are fucking awesome. But this, all kidding aside, this is a phenomenal documentary and look at the Bee Gees and their music and what it meant to the world, and I mean how they basically defined a genre and changed an era. I mean, it's unreal. The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart?
Nice, great choice. My number one goes to more along the lines of a festival, which was a disaster. More than the 1999 Woodstock, more than the original Woodstock with no plumbing, all the craziness. But I'm talking about the Fire documentary that was supposed to be held in the Bahamas, and it was very interesting too because Netflix and Hulu released similar documentaries about the same concept around the same time, and the Netflix one was just so much better. But yeah, it was very interesting because, like, you have this random guy who tries to throw this random event, and he did it in like the Bahamas on a random island, so you have to fly people there, and then you leave people there stranded with like barely any food, like barely any water, barely any resources, and it was the biggest disaster ever. You got people like Ja Rule involved as like a promoter for the thing. So it was one of those things where I really enjoyed it because I'm like, it's an easier way to catch a scam. It's an idea type thing to where you're like, okay, if something smells fishy, it's probably fishy. Let's not go down this rabbit hole. But I mean, that guy just got out of jail because he went to jail for all that, for taking all those people's money. And he's trying to go back to doing the same thing, but I definitely don't think he will be able to.
You would hope not.
Yeah, number one for me, Fire. They're definitely a very interesting documentary. Everybody should watch that one.
Oh, without doubt. Yeah, it's the epitome of watch out for shady ass people. The idea that this guy is coming out and trying to be a promoter again is just unreal to me. It's like, and somebody stupid will buy it. That's the thing. Yeah. Somebody will fall for it. It's just oblivious. My number one, again on Apple, is... anybody from my generation, you had to watch this one. I was excited as hell about this one. Beastie Boys Story. It's about the Beastie Boys. I love this because it's they did it in such a unique way. So as you guys know, Adam Horowitz and Adam Yauch and Mike D, they were the Beastie Boys. And Adam Yauch, of course, died. Fought cancer and died. And this documentary is basically where the two survivors are they're doing this little stage show, and they're talking about the history of the Beastie Boys in like this stage show. So the creativity of how they tell this documentary and how they tell the story was really interesting to watch. And it gets real personal. It's hard to watch sometimes because they talk about the loss and what it meant to them and the things that they had to deal with. And so it gets tough to watch at some points, but it really dives into the history of the Beastie Boys. Did you guys know it wasn't originally 3? There was a woman. There was so much more involved with the Beastie Boys that people don't even realize. And when they came out and they hit big, and then kind of like what you were talking about with Alanis Morissette, they kind of fell a little bit, and everybody tried to change them. Oh, you got to come out with this now. You got to sound this way or sound that way. And a lot of people don't know that the same guy that was kind of managing them, kind of working them, kind of doing them, Run DMC hit. And he was also doing them. And it was very much okay, well, now they're the people. And now what does that mean for the Beastie Boys? And how do we change? And they kind of started to go more rock. They started to go more outside of the zone of what the Beastie Boys were. And there was a little success there, but then not really. And they had to figure out how to reclaim what their initial sound was to get back into it. And when they finally went through the struggle and they go through all the kind of stuff, that's when Adam got sick and kind of like, we're seeing this resurgence, we're seeing this thing, and now we're going to have to deal with this tragedy, and that's going to be the end of the Beastie Boys, and that's going to be how. But, they were groundbreaking. In my opinion, and I'm just putting it out there is no Eminem without the Beastie Boys. Legit. The Beastie Boys were the OG white rappers. Like they were, and they brought a sound. They brought a rebellion. These were the guys that were telling you, go out and party and don't give a fuck, have some fun, And it definitely was a huge part of the 80s, and I feel like the rebellious generation of the 80s. Because, the 80s was all about wealth. Everybody was rich then. Everybody was doing well with money. And it was the yuppie era, right? But here come the rebellions. They're like, fuck that. We're going to rebel. We're going to be hardcore. We're going to have fun. We're going to party. We're going to say, fuck all y'all. It's the vibe that they gave about life is supposed to be fun. You're supposed to be out there living it, and kind of do. And so... this one was really like this is a part of my youth, and so going to this was just something really I was excited to see, and I was worried about how they were going to do it because of Adam being dead, and how do you do a Beastie Boys without all the Beastie Boys? But it's a very touching tribute and done in a very creative way. And they don't shy away from the controversy. They don't shy away from the trouble that they got into at some points and trouble that they caused at some points. And it's a very interesting documentary about a group that changed a generation. Again, much like the Bee Gees and stuff, they changed and defined a generation and were responsible for launching a lot of who we see today. So it's just, if you want to know the history and you're a fan of hip hop, you definitely want to check this one out. Like legit, Beastie Boys story. You'll be glad you did.
For sure, man. For sure. Yeah, I'm blessed that I got to see all 3 of them in concert. So, that was a really cool experience.
Oh, no doubt, right? You can't beat them. Beastie Boys are Beastie Boys, right? Like,
yeah,
it just...
Exactly. Well, we want to know, what is your favorite music documentary? Please be sure to comment below in the YouTube comment section or add us on Threads, Twitter, all the good places where we love the fan interaction, so we're always here for it. But now we're going over to the box office recap. Beetlejuice did come in at number one with $111 million for its
Yes.
opening weekend. So yeah, smash the box office. It's really freaking awesome to see.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what happens this week though with that second week. Is there going to be a massive drop off? But we'll keep you.
Yeah, well, no, I was just before we came on, I saw that they're expecting a 60% drop, so somewhere around 40 million this weekend, and will still dominate the weekend this weekend.
Well, yeah. That makes sense because I mean, we'll get into it with the new movies coming out, but I mean, there's good stuff coming out, but it's more in the horror genre to where they don't make that kind of numbers. Number two was Deadpool and Wolverine with $7 million. Reagan came in at number 4 with 4.8. Alien Romulus came in at number 4 with 3.9. And number 5 was It Ends With Us with 3.7. And new movies that are coming out are Speak No Evil. That's that James McAvoy psychological thriller one.
Looks
My
good.
Old Ass, The Killer's Game, Am I Racist, and the 3:30 movie. Please be sure to check out the 4:30 movie. That is Kevin Smith's new film.
Yes.
That is in select theaters. So check that one out if you have the opportunity.
Yes.
Movies you can still go see this weekend are The Forge, The Front Room, Afraid, You Gotta Believe, Twisters, Deadpool and Wolverine in select theaters. It Ends With Us, all the good stuff. So yeah, man, it's gonna be a good weekend.
Oh yeah,
weekend.
I'm planning on Speak No Evil and The Killer's Game. I'm gonna see both of the Killer's Game, guys. Is Batista's new one, which looks really good. And I'm gonna, if I can find it, I think I'm gonna have to make a little drive for it. But I want to go see My Old Ass. It looks like a really creative, original film. It's Aubrey Plaza, and it's basically her older self somehow travels time and confronts her younger self, and they become friends, and that's what it's all about, like, trying to like make sure that her younger self doesn't go down the path she doesn't want her to kind of go. But if you've seen the trailer, it looks really, really interesting, so I'm gonna try to find that one as well. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, I think there's a couple of good ones, and as awesome as I think that Speak No Evil and The Killer's Game are gonna be, yeah, they're just not gonna touch Beetlejuice. It's Beetlejuice is going to dominate again, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, heading over to the IMDbPro's Top Trending segment, Beetlejuice is the top trending movie. Top trending TV show is The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. And the top trending star is Eve Hewson. So that is all very exciting. But man, oh man, thank you guys for tuning in to episode 272 of ITCAF Podcast. We appreciate you. Be sure to follow us at ITCAF Podcast anywhere and everywhere on social media. Our company is at Crazy Ant Media anywhere and everywhere. And then, of course, our other podcast, Everything's OKP, on social media. And then you guys know you can follow us both personally on social media, myself at J Logan Austin and
at Crazy Ant CEO.
That's right. And subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, and so much more. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit that like button below, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for all the latest and greatest notifications coming out of Crazy Ant Media. And then, speaking of the company, be sure to head over to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear, learn more about us, our future projects that we have in development, and a whole lot more, man. Anything you need to know about us, you will most likely find it there, to be honest. Besides our phone numbers, you won't find those.
No.
But man, oh man, what another great week, another thing in the can, and yeah, I love it. It's going to be a great weekend. This weekend, I am going to go see Eliza Schlesinger in New Orleans for a comedy show, so yeah. I'm very excited about that. And I also got to send my parents to her show as well. They're going tonight. We're going tomorrow.
There you go.
It's all fun times, but I'm very excited.
Yes, that'll be a lot of fun, and thankfully the hurricane did not disrupt that. So yeah, that's yeah. It's been a really good week though. It's just been a really good week. We are so lucky to be able to do what we do and just have fun, and just the industry, man. It's always fun. It's never a dull moment. podcast.
That's right, man. That's right. And you guys know, for 272 episodes, we continue to love the one, the only
Oprah!